Hello and welcome to your instructional tropical aquarium guide. I'm Paul Talbot. I'm going to teach you all little tricks of how to keep a successful tropical aquarium like these ones. No matter what it is you're after, there'll always be something that suits you, whether it be a small aquarium like this one or an even large one like that. What we really want to encourage you to do is learn as much as possible about the animals which you wish to keep, because there really is something that's going to suit you. But having more information about the ones that you select really is the key, because we need to know that some of these fish are going to grow very large, some of them are going to grow quite small, some of them are going to eat plants, other ones are not going to eat plants. So the more requirements we understand about the fish we're keeping, the more likely we're going to have success with them. Now, once upon a time, people would go into the aquarium shops, they would ask various questions, they'd get pretty much the sort of information that they'd need to know, but the problem is we tend to forget. Human memory retention is 20%, which means you go in, you learn pretty much what you need to know, you go out, and then you still wonder why your fish die. We also used to try and sell books to people, but we find that people just don't have the time to read the books, and even if they do read them, once again, they just forget a lot of the information. That's why we produced this series. Now, particularly if you're new to the hobby, I really suggest watching it through several times, because hearing it and seeing it several times over is really going to help you remember it. So really take advantage of some of the beautiful tanks that you're seeing during this program. If you notice any beautiful features which may have been utilized in one of these tanks, use those ideas for your own aquarium. What a lot of people will do, even get dead corals and create an environment which looks very much like a saltwater aquarium with bright yellows, bright blues, bright oranges. Looks very much like a marine aquarium, but it's actually African cichlids. Now, a lot of people will do this. This is very popular if you want that very marine look with gorgeous colours, but you don't want the effort to look after them. Now, I'm going to walk you through all the steps for setting up the aquarium, everything from filtration, lighting, heating, water parameters, information on breeding these fish. You'll find that you can breed them and grow the young up quite easily, and then you can sell those babies off to the stores. Now, they'll usually want to swap them for a credit. If you swap them for cash, you don't typically get as much for them. But if you swap them for a credit, then you can upgrade the types of fish that you're keeping and broaden your experience with these fish. No matter what size or style of house you've got, you always have room for an aquarium, particularly if you're inventive enough. During the course of this video, you'll see some very interesting aquariums, both set in walls and made of parts of other pieces of furniture. Providing that you're creative, you'll be surprised what ideas you too can come up with. During various phases over the years, aquariums have developed a bit of a reputation as being hard to look after. In general, it's not that they're hard to look after, it really is the lack of information which has been available to people. So I really want you to understand, keeping a fish tank is easy, providing that you have the right information. So it's just like getting in a car and driving the car, and then the car breaks down and you say the car was no good. It's maybe that you didn't have the understanding to put the petrol in the car or to change the spark plugs in the car. So what I'm trying to say, keeping a fish tank is very, very easy to keep, providing you have the information. So you really want to look at what fish you're going to purchase and compare that with how prepared you are to look after them. So if you want a hobby, you want to be involved in your aquarium, you want to be learning about it and actually maintaining it, then these sorts of elaborate planted aquariums really are an option. On the other hand, if you want a piece of furniture, you want something that you can set up and have fish that almost come with a warranty, that almost never die, you're really better off going for fish like the cichlids, which are much longer lived and hardier fish. Now, tetras over the years have given community fish quite a bad reputation, because the tetra in the wild is usually pretty much an annual fish, which means it lives, it grows, it breeds, it dies pretty much within 1 year in the wild. So when people buy them at the aquarium shops, maybe they're 6 months old when they buy them, then they keep that fish for 3 to 6 months, and then they find that most of them are dead, and they're pulling their hair out thinking, well, why do my fish keep dying? This is not a good hobby. When maybe it's just the type of fish they're purchasing. So it is important to understand the lifespan of the fish you're keeping. A lot of your tetras and things live for about a year. In the aquariums, we do hear stories of them living for 2 years or plus, but in general, understand if you're keeping small fish and they're not living for overly long periods of time, maybe that's just the species that you're actually keeping. Then with most of your live bearers, like your platies and your mollies and your guppies, most of those are pretty much biannual fish, which means they'll live about 2 years in the wild. So if in your aquarium they're living 2 or say 3 years, and then they're dying after that, old age really is an issue, especially with these smaller fish. With the very large gouramis and things, you hear stories of them living 12 or 15 years or plus. That just really isn't the case with the smaller fish, because they do tend to be more delicate and their life just isn't as long. But aquarium really is relaxing. It's been said that if you look at the aquarium for 15 minutes a day, you're actually able to lower your stress level by 40%. Not only are they a great pet, but it really is the ultimate piece of furniture too, and it's heaps cheaper than water views. People spend millions of dollars to get a block of land to look at the water, and I say, well, hey, you get a window, you get to look in the water. You really will find that keeping aquariums is a really addictive and contagious hobby. You'll find that when you first get involved in it, you're so excited about it, you don't stop talking about it, and you'll actually get a lot of your friends into it as well. But information is everything. Exchange information with your friends. Talk about, learn about, because you'll find the more you learn about this hobby, the more success you'll have and the more you'll enjoy it. I really encourage that you use the chapters of this guide and try to understand the principles behind each one of those chapters, so it arms you with the information to ensure that you too can have beautiful tropical aquariums like these ones. When selecting fish to go into your aquarium, it really is quite important that you understand how appropriate this fish is for the aquarium that you've got. So if you've got a small aquarium such as this one, it's really important that you don't go getting species of fish that grow too large, because it's quite cruel to keep fish that grow large in small aquariums, even though they will stunt. So if you've got a small aquarium and you put a fish in it that actually grows very big, the fish will actually have a stunted growth, so somewhat like I guess you could say a bonsai fish, because the fish produce pheromones and pheromones stunts the growth of the fish. So with the smaller aquariums, you really are restricted to the smaller fish. On the other hand, if you've got a very big aquarium such as this one, you're really less restricted. You've got so many options for various fish to put into the aquariums because of the sheer size of this tank. What I would suggest doing if you're a beginner is to keep a list of the fish that you keep. Therefore, when you go to consult your aquarium expert at your local aquarium shop, you can bring the list with you, allowing them to advise you what sort of fish are likely to work with your aquarium. The first thing to consider is how aggressive the fish are. Obviously, if you put a fish into your aquarium that's more aggressive than the fish you've got, it potentially could kill some of the fish in your aquarium. As well as that, if it's not aggressive as your fish, then it may get killed by the fish in your aquarium. When you're introducing the fish, this really needs to be considered. Also, the pH of the aquarium. You don't want to keep an acid type aquarium and go putting in a fish that prefers alkaline pH, otherwise the chances of it getting sick is of course very high. Also consider the amount of salt that they advise that you put into the water and the types of food that you should be feeding them. Understand what it is that you feed your current aquarium and make sure that it's acceptable diet for the new fish that you introduce. Most fish are opportunists, so any large fish will more than likely eat small fish. So there's a, I guess, size of mouth rule, where even if it's a large peaceful fish, even a goldfish, if it's got a mouth large enough to eat your small fish, you can almost guarantee it's probably going to end up there. So with this combination of fish, while they're small, They all will tend to get along. On the other hand, as they grow up and personalities develop, you can have one aquarium with this same mix of fish, and all the fish can seem to get along with no problems whatsoever for years. On the other hand, you can have another aquarium which has basically the opposite result, where some of the individuals become quite aggressive and may attack some of the other species. It's really important to monitor and watch this as it's occurring. Now, generally it'll be one instigator that will cause most of the aggression and problems in your aquarium, because the key is the dominant fish. If you've got a dominant fish in the aquarium which is acting slightly aggressively between most of the fish and exerting its dominance and interrupting or breaking any fights that break out between the fish, then you'll find that the fish will grow up well. On the other hand, if you've got a less observant or, let's say, not as good boss, then in general there can be a lot more problems with aggression, because that boss will usually be overridden and a lot of aggression can occur in the aquarium. Every aquarium will have a hierarchy. There'll be the boss, then the second boss, then all the way down to the biggest wimp. Now, the boss's job should be to control the rest of the fish. If this is working properly, then the hierarchy of the aquarium should not change. On the other hand, if the boss is not controlling the rest of the ranks and hierarchy is changing, you will result in a lot of aggression being in the aquarium. So how aggressive the aquarium is governed by how many fish are in the aquarium, what type of fish are in the aquarium, and who the boss of the aquarium is. One of the easiest things to remember is that the younger the fish, the more compatible it tends to be with its tank mates. On the other hand, as the fish get older and get used to their ways and used to the fish they've grown up with, they tend to be less compatible with other tank mates. In some circumstances, various fish work, and in other circumstances, those same fish just don't work. For example, fish like silver sharks, mono angels, clown loaches, scats, various sucker fish will work in one aquarium and simply not work in the other aquarium. It's really a matter of trying your aquarium and seeing how yours react to that style of fish. In general, the larger, the less compatible it is with other tank mates. If you have a, for example, large Mabuna or large type of African cichlid and try and introduce it with other fish, there's a much lower chance of that fish getting along, because it's grown up and become accustomed to its territories, its tank mates, and is generally less able to adapt to a new environment and is more likely to be irritable and aggressive than a smaller one, not unlike humans. So in this aquarium, I'd be watching the silver sharks and the loaches as being the more peaceful fish that may get picked on. On the other hand, I'd be looking at things like the red scats and the mono angels as potentially being the more aggressive ones. The colour and effect can look strongest if you pick a few types of fish that you like, particularly if you like the electric yellows. Get quite a high number of the electric yellow, because when they're all together, that unity is really quite striking, and that high presence of yellow will look quite powerful in the aquarium. Now, when buying the aquarium, try and make the aquarium as long and as wide as possible to increase the surface area of the water. Try not to purchase tall, thin aquariums with small surface area, because the amount of surface area the aquarium will have directly relates to the amount of fish you can have in the aquarium. So many times people will buy an aquarium from the store and it either wasn't quite what they were after, or it doesn't look quite as big once it settles into the home. So make sure you buy the tank as big as possible. Also, try to have your filtration as big as possible, because in general, larger filters are more versatile and they can handle a larger bio load, which is the amount of stock in the aquarium. So large filters and large aquariums generally reach a lot less regret. Though the standard models of aquarium sizes and colours tend to be cheaper, don't forget that an aquarium is a long-term investment, so don't be afraid to get a custom aquarium. Though they're a little bit more expensive, it's really important to get something that suits your home style and purpose. Make sure you put a lot of thought into the positioning of your aquarium. You want to try and keep it away from any major thoroughfares, like hallways are not the best idea, away from slamming doors, and definitely direct sunlight. Try to keep the aquarium away from direct sunlight, because that's going to encourage algae problems and possibly temperature problems. A corner like this is absolutely perfect. Make sure under any aquarium that you always have polystyrofoam. Now what this does is take up any irregularities in your stand. No matter how flat you think your stand is, make sure you have the polystyrofoam. Now this filter is run off an overflow principle. So what happens is you've got the filter down the bottom, it blows water up via a pump into the top of the aquarium, which overflows the aquarium via a hole, which returns the water down into the filter again. Now there's various different ways to take the water from the aquarium down into the sump. There are overflow chambers that people make in the corner of the aquarium. I think that the least obvious is just simply a hole in the back of the aquarium. If you want the water level relatively low, you'll put the hole down lower, remembering that if you're pumping a lot of water up, you'll need to make sure that this hole is low enough to accept the amount of water which is outputted by the pump. It really is important to have good filtration on your aquarium and understand how this filtration works. There's heaps of different filtration available, everything from internal box filters, under gravel filters, internal canister filters, hang-on filters, external canister filters, trickle filters, and other types of sump filters. A lot of them are very effective. The most important thing is to have filters which are big enough for the capacity that you need and to make sure that you understand how to use them properly. It's really important that you're happy with the position of the aquarium, because now we're going to fill it with gravel, decorations and water, and there's no way you'll be able to move it once it's completed.